All right, on this episode of Locked On Avalanche, let's get nostalgic and look back at some of our favorite moments from this past season. New episode of Locked On Avalanche coming at you.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Locked On Avalanche podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Chris Maselli. With me, as always, is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan. Thank you for tuning in, making it your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. Make sure you're following us on our social media outlets, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, X, Locked On Avalanche on Instagram and Threads. Questions, comments, concerns, and opinions, lockedonavalanche@gmail.com. And follow us on our YouTube channel. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. And make sure you're subscribed to our subtext as well. And when you do that, you chat with Kyle and I one-on-one, and we get your opinion on everything Avalanche related, which we share on this very podcast, which we will be doing today in a couple different ways. We will get to our Ross Colton grade as we make our way down the Avalanche roster and hand out season grades. We'll get some subtext perspective on that, as well as the voting that was out across the social media. And where we're going to start today, and that's with our favorite moments of the season, Kyle, because now, the Avalanche season obviously came to an end, and now we can kind of look back and say, like, well, these were the moments that, when you think of the season, these are the ones that stuck out. And this happens every, you always, no matter how your season goes, whether you're the Stanley Cup champion or you're the San Jose Sharks, you have moments, and the Avalanche definitely had moments this year, I think.
And, I think if you're looking back at this year, trying to find, things to carry into next year, I think we'd be both remiss if we don't lead it off with Nathan MacKinnon's point streak.
Yeah, that was hot. That was like maybe the hottest moment that the Avalanche had this year, I would think. And if it wasn't for I think really the only one that you can say what was a genuine game where he didn't score at all was that one against Winnipeg, which I think was their last home game. When it ended, it was a reversal. Like he initially had an assist and then it got taken away. The Avs tried to petition the league to say, like, hey, look, like that should be an assist, but they said nope. So, I mean, it still stopped, second all time to Gretzky. But it would have been, I mean, he could have got right there and tied with him. But that Winnipeg game, they got blown out, shut out. So that was a genuine no point game for MacKinnon. But other than that, he was spectacular at home. I mean, it was spectacular all year. But yeah, I think that's kind of where a lot of people's minds will go.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be your banner, wrap up the season, point it back to whatever stat or game you want to go back to. You just say, oh, yeah, that was the year of Nathan MacKinnon's point streak, and everybody knows exactly what year you're talking about.
Yeah, that was a good one. For me, there's a few of them, and I'm sure you have a few as well. Stick with MacKinnon. There's always a moment that, like, I'll tell people that aren't like hockey fans, and there's just a moment that happens in a game, and if I see them and be like, hey, last night this happened, and for me, that moment this year was when Nathan MacKinnon fed Logan O'Connor.
Oh, yeah.
So he could get his hat trick. Like that to me is just, I'm not getting to the whole C conversation and everything like that. The stuff like that is why I feel like he would be like good for it. Because he knew the moment, and he had to know the moment in a split second, because he was going for one of his own. He could have, he knows, like, hey, I'm going to get some of these. I'm going to have more opportunities than Logan O'Connor. And to see him right there, split second decision, like that's Logan O'Connor. He's got an opportunity for a hat trick. Who knows how many he's going to get in his career? Let me feed it to him so he can get the empty netter. That to me was, I told so many people about that the next day.
Yeah, we go back many times of the season talking about the Avs just don't have that highlight moment that they usually do with like a Nathan MacKinnon dipsy do and a Cale Makar whoop de woo, and he didn't have those. But that moment right there where he gave that up for Logan O'Connor, like that was an ultimate, and it was not like rubbing salt in a wound. It wasn't like really dancing on a down opponent. It was a kind, gentlemanly sportsman gesture,
Yeah.
and it was iconic.
Absolutely. I say, Nathan McKinnon will, in the, maybe didn't think of it in the moment immediately, but was like, I'm going to get more of these. And he did. And I think it was either the next game or like 2 games later, he got one. I think he had a natural hat trick
Yeah.
against Washington. That was a 5-point game. And then I don't know how many games later it was, had another 5-point game against Ottawa. Like 4 goals, 1 assist for both of those games. So there you go.
And
it just goes to show you that, he can turn it on whenever he wants to.
it's incredible to see like him pass that up and that be one of your leading moments, because that like segues into probably my next moment of the year. Because look to your left, look to your right, smell your clothes. It still smells like Memorial Day barbecue. This is 2024, and on March 7th, 2024, we celebrated Cale Makar's first career hat trick.
Yeah. And the stats and the accolades just keep piling on for him. And people were like surprised that it was, it took that. It was weird. Like when it happened, not that it took that long. I think people just expected him to already have one.
Yeah.
And people that maybe like don't follow the Avalanche all the time, or just kind of like, not the casual fan, but just fans of other teams, probably heard like, oh, Cale Makar had his first career hat trick. And the reaction was probably like, that can't be his first. Of all the things that this guy's done already, like but I mean, you have to remember he's a defenseman. Although he puts up like great point production for a defenseman, it doesn't come easy. Hat tricks don't come easy for anybody, but especially defensemen. So yeah, I think you're right on that. That definitely was a big moment.
Yeah, and like looking back, and that was right before the playoffs, and that was a little bit of the playoff storyline. Was Nathan McKinnon is right, Cale Makar, he's right there. He just had his first career hat trick. What else are you going to see in the playoffs? And it's one of those funny little stats that you're like, oh, I thought he's had 2 or 3 of those at least this season, let alone that was his first of all time. It was interesting, and it was nice to see, and it's probably going to be the first of many.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not something that, it could be. Remember like Derek Jeter, like it took forever with the Grand Slam streak. People like just like at some point they're like, he's got to get one. And at least it didn't go that route for Cale Makar. Like he got out of the way, pretty early in his career. And I think you're right. I think he's going to have a handful of them. I mentioned Logan O'Connor having the hat trick. But he also had a nice shorthanded goal streak early in the season where he had 3 straight games where he had shorthanded goals, and he almost had a 4th. And I don't remember who they played, but he had an opportunity for the 4th. Was that the one that we were at?
Yeah.
He had the opportunity for the 4th, but it didn't happen. But still, 3 shorthanded goals consecutive games was that stuff like that's exciting because going into that game, you're not rooting for you to go shorthanded, but how many times when you do go shorthanded, you have something to look forward to, and you did for at least a game when Logan O'Connor was going for 4 in a row, but 3 in a row that was fun to watch too.
And it's you talked about Jeter and his Grand Slam streak, like that's a difficult thing to load up statistically in situation and make that happen. Same with a shorthanded goal, let alone 2 in a row. 3 in a row, that's unheard of. And LOC was just automatic. The way he would play the puck in those scenarios, and he would take it home. It was incredible to watch.
And they missed that. He went out later in the year, but what he brings to the team, he's the defensive specialist on the penalty kill. You missed that. You missed that going forward in the end of the year, and obviously in the playoffs.
And it's something to look forward to next year. That's for sure.
Yep, definitely. Go ahead.
I got one more good little moment that Avs fans could, sleep at peace tonight with this in their mind. Does everybody remember when the Colorado Avalanche played this lowly team called the Dallas Stars, and Mikko scored to tie it up with 1:09 to go in the game, and Nate eventually ended up winning the game in overtime? That was one of those just ruckus, you didn't feel like the team was out of it. And when Mikko put in that goal to tie it up to send it into overtime, you want to talk about momentum and emotion. Like that game, just that shot of like Mikko getting that goal. It's one of those that stood out from a lot of the other games that happened this season.
I have on mine, like, that was a great game. Just the first game against Dallas, where they
Mm,
scored 6 straight.
yep.
And I know that was, like, a common theme and a common thread for the Avalanche throughout the season was, like, comeback victories. But that one, you were down 3-0, I think it was, and then you just rattle off 6 straight. I know if Stars fans are still listening to this episode, they get the last laugh. But, during the regular season, that was a great game for that started like this whole like, okay, we can do this, and they did it over and over and over and over again throughout the regular season. um I had that one. There was a couple more I had. There was 2 goals that the Avalanche had in 7 seconds. Zach Parise got his first goal with the Avalanche, and then Sam Girard just threw like a half court shot it was flute. Those things never, ever, ever happen. It's like just like those, another baseball reference we're throwing out here today. Just those random pop flies that just everybody just all of a sudden stares at and just drops. Like they never happen. I don't know what the heck it was, but it was, I don't know if he had some spin on the puck or something like that, but it was 7 seconds after Priest got his first goal. Sammy G hits one from center ice. That was
Yeah,
pretty fun to watch too.
sticking with your baseball analogy, I guess it's because Memorial Day, but it's almost like a Bill Buckner moment. Like
Yeah.
that's an easy stop. Like you had all day long, you knew what to do, and you just let it by. And it was that same reaction of shock and oh my goodness, that just happened.
Yeah. So that one was great. The Uses Anderson back-to-back shutouts, although they came against the Chicago Blackhawks. So what? That was fun. And the Arturi Lehkonen overtime winner with less than a second to go against Edmonton. Beautiful. Just that play is just poetry in motion. McKinnon just back kicking it to himself, just throwing it right to center, centering the puck where Lehkonen is, who doesn't even really realize he scored. He kind of just turns around. He just sticks his stick out, deflects off his stick into the net, and he kind of just peels away. And he turns around and he sees his teammates celebrating. So then he goes and celebrates. That was fantastic. Also,
Yeah, I got 2 honorable mentions to finish it out.
Mhm.
The Avs did beat the Ducks 8-2 earlier this year, and Kiviranta had 1 goal and 2 assists. That was just a fun game that was early in the season. You started to really believe where this team was going, only to be led into the second honorable mention, which was the Avalanche were on a 9-game winning streak. That was 3 weeks. The Avalanche did not lose a single game.
And you mentioned streak, and we can't go without mentioning, although it carried over into the season, the road streak that
Mhm.
they had, the road winning streak, which set a record. So yeah, like I said, carried over from last year, and I think that was the other game. The Islanders game was the one that set the record, the one that we
That's
went
right.
to. So yeah, overall, a very good season for the Islanders in terms of good memories and good plays and good games that they had. And the Subtext crew has some that they want to throw as well. So let's get our break in. We'll come back. We'll see what the Subtext people had to say. And then we'll get to Ross Colton and his season grade. So we'll do that right after this. Let's hear from Gametime. It makes getting NBA Finals tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to tip-off. And with killer last-minute deals, all-in pricing, views from your seats, and the lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. What do we love about the Gametime app? They have priority last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sporting events, concerts, comedy, and theater. The flash deals, the zone deals, your all-in pricing. The price you see is the price that you pay. No hidden fees or anything like that. And the lowest price guarantee or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. How can you beat that? So take the guesswork out of buying NBA Finals tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. So again, create the account and redeem the code Locked On NHL, LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, so let's hear from some subtext people before we get to our Ross Colton grade on the season. Zach says the first game that came to mind was that pass from McKinnon That went between his legs to Lehkonen with 1 second. There you go. 1 second left for the goal. He said, whoa, what a play, shot, goal. So Zach is definitely, we just mentioned that right at the end of the last segment, but phenomenal. Could watch that play over and over again.
Yeah, I think. Thank you, Zach Parise.
Kyle says, following the McKinnon point streak was electric. It was fun seeing the progression from a talking point either pregame or during the broadcast to being on the edge of the seat as it became a reality that it was within reach. And I mean, I'm just going off the top of my head, but there was that one game where he had an assist that was on an empty netter, which continued it. And that was, I think, when he was in like the 20s somewhere. I could be mistaken on that. But for the most part, like, he was getting the point out of the way relatively early in the game. There was not many times where it was coming down to the wire. That's the only one that I can't remember who it was against, but that's the only one that sticks out in my head where it was a goalie pulled assist that he got to continue it.
Yeah, he was very clinical with getting that out of the way so the Avalanche could do what they had to do.
It was just so dominant in home games throughout the whole season. He was, but especially in home games. This is from Easton. Said the Drouin overtime winner, the Walker 2-goal game against Edmonton. Yeah, that's kind of where he arrived for being an Av. Nate's 4-goal game against Ottawa, which was also his first game in Ball Arena. So that's a great game no matter when you go see it. But his first game was that was great. And then good stick Lecky in the first round.
Yeah.
So there you go. Madam Battleaxe says, why she got to do this? She said she brought in the horrible moments. Come on, madam, we're going in the opposite direction, but okay, I'll bite. She said the horrible moments when Nashville scored in the final seconds. She gave the November 20th game. I think they scored twice in the final seconds to win that game.
A collapse.
Well, that was horrible. That was a gut-wrenching loss. And the loss to St. Louis, November 11th, which that must have been that like 7-2 game or 7-3 game, I believe. It's got to be, because
that was when the Avs didn't like to win on Saturday.
Yeah. They've lingered on for the whole season and took part of her soul, is what she said. The perfect moments, the first meeting with Seattle and St. Louis, both in wins. That was just great. Redemption. So the redemption in Seattle and any win over Binnington is just fine for her.
It's one of my favorite things.
Yeah. And then Coy says the best moment for me was the last game of the season. I was there and my dad and fiance were there with me. Watching hockey with family is what made it the best. And we kicked their butt. So that's good, Coy. I'm glad you got to see it.
Yep. And even though the Dallas games and like there were some late start times, there was a lot of games that I got to enjoy with my family. So I agree with you, Coy. Definitely. A lot more family time during this season.
Absolutely. All right, let's head over to Ross Colton, and we'll get his season grade. If you are watching over on YouTube, we're going to put it up right there. And over on the social media accounts on YouTube, 74%. They all went B on social media. YouTube was 74%. Twitter X was 62%. Instagram was 67%. And Threads was 77%. All straight Bs. I went with the B+, and Kyle, not very happy, I guess, with Ross Colton. And he gave him a C. You're on the hot seat, sir. You are on the hot seat. Explain yourself.
You know what? That's fine. I understand that looking at this graphic, if you're watching on YouTube, you're like, what is Shaggy's problem? Well, there's a lot. And, but it has nothing to do with Ross Colton. I don't have a problem with Ross Colton. And this C is not, saying anything negative about Ross Colton. He gave you 40 points. That's about what you expected, especially after the beginning of the season. That's honestly kind of where you were tracking with. He was kind of like a Burakovsky-esque contribution, even though he was a really good center, but the faceoffs were iffy at times. But you just felt with Ross Colton, he had his rumbling, bumbling, stumbling Miles Wood as a partner that he carried all the way through this season. And you just felt like we did the crossover with Adam Denker about what Ross Colton could possibly bring to this team. And you felt like Ross, even though he had 40 points, he had just a little bit more to give. And it just felt like he didn't get completely settled. And that C is just I feel like he left a lot on the table, and I feel like he would say the same thing if you ask him this question.
I don't disagree with that. But the way that I view it is, if you want to say like he left a lot out there, and there was still more that he could have accomplished. I don't. I think it's tough to say that it's because of his own doing. Like I think the way that he played, excuse me, with just unknowing what line he was going to be on and what other duo he was going to be with, really throughout the whole season. I think and to put up the points he did, knowing that, just all over the place, and for him to do what he did this year, which is career stats.
Yeah.
If his 40 points is a career high by a single point, but it's a career high. 17 goals is not his highest, but that's his second highest. 23 assists is his highest. He took way more faceoffs than he ever did in his career by over 100 faceoffs. So he was asked to do a lot. And I think in his role, what they wanted him to be was just that solid third line guy. That's his role. And for most of the season, yeah, he was playing that, but he got propped up a couple times. Excuse me. Guys on his line were injured, and everything around him was getting thrown in, thrown out, different looks, different this, different that. And I thought, like, despite all that, he played consistent. And he could have just not phoned it in, but kind of like packed it and just been like, dude, I can't get any consistency going because my line is changing every single night, it seems like. And for him to go out and put up a career year despite all that is exactly why I gave him a B+. And if he had it, because we saw it, the Roaring 20s line, they were exciting. And it didn't last long because it got broken up because, sometimes Logan O'Connor had to get pulled up to a second line or something like that, or even down to a fourth line. It was just such inconsistency, which is just the mantra of the Avalanche this season, where Ross Colton just couldn't find a consistent line and line mates through the duration of the season. But like I said, despite it all, I thought he put up great numbers. He was one of my favorite players this year watching. Really was.
Yeah, and I don't want everybody to mistake that C as something detrimental, but he had so many opportunities because with Ryan Johansson starting the year with the team, he had an opportunity to step up and take over where there was a deficiency there. And it just felt like it was one of those Ross Colton will work if. And with Ross Colton's ability, he could have taken that additional step. And I feel like he could have given so much more in times where the Avs needed it, especially up until that trade deadline. And I know Drouin was initially one of those that they were batting around, but then he was stuck with McKinnon for the rest of the year. Like, I would have liked to see Ross Colton with all of his talent and all he could do. I would like to see him just be a little bit more bold and selfish and take over a little bit more, because he just became the sum of his line and he just became one of the better players on that line. And I feel like he could have been a star. Like, he could have taken that step up and ascended as one. That's a tagline. But no, I feel like there was just so much more he could have done. And that's also hard to ask as somebody, this is your first year under the Avalanche system and you're learning and figuring and understanding. I get that, but I just feel like there was so much more. And you want to see what that looks like next year, because I feel like he has the potential of being an everyday, like, A- player.
Well, he, with the Ryan Johansson stuff and that not working out, sometimes he got brought up to that second line center, which is like, that's a lot to ask for him. I think he's capable of managing that occasionally. But now that Casey Middlestad is there, assuming that they're going to get a deal done for him, and your first, second, and third centers should now be set.
Mm-hmm.
And him going in every day knowing, like, I am centering this third line and away we go. I think he'll be even better next year.
Absolutely.
So I thought he was great, all things considered, this year. Sure, were there moments where he kind of disappeared a little bit? Yeah. But I thought, just considering just the inconsistency of where he was playing and then his line mates, I thought he did a great job.
And
really did.
And I know it's just crazy to say, like, with his talent and what he having career year, still feeling like there's more. That speaks to the quality of a player that Ross Colton is.
Definitely. All right, we got some subtext people chiming in on this. Madam Battleaxe, she gives him a solid A. She's a little bit slighted though because she says he's not bad on the eyes.
Oh,
So I think she's grading on a curve there. So, but she's happy that they acquired him. His hockey IQ is good, and he brought a level of experience to the team that was very valuable. With what is left on his contract, I think we will get so much more from him as years go on. And I would agree with that. I think for a first year, brand new system, brand new team, I thought he played great. I thought he played a really good year. We got I almost said a different name. Vargar, B plus. So he's in agreement with me. He was as advertised regular season, but I feel like he had more to give in the playoffs, especially against Dallas. I would agree with you there. I would have liked to seen him kind of move some mountains there in the postseason because he needed to. Like, Dallas has that depth, and you matched it. You matched the depth against Winnipeg. You needed to do the same thing against Dallas, and the Avs really didn't. And Colton was kind of he's your ringleader of your bottom six guys. So if he's not going, you can't really expect the other guys to really get going.
and with how that Dallas series played out, with nobody showing up, and Ross Colton walking away out of the playoffs with only 4 points, that's another area you felt like he could have stepped up and felt more comfortable with that team. And there was just a lot left.
Avs fan forever is in agreement with you. He says for the first season with Colorado in 80 games played, I'd say he's a solid C with only 17 goals. Maybe I'm being harsh, but that's why I said first season. I see potential with him, maybe even 2C potential, but he's got work to do for that spot. I mean, if they get Middlestat, I don't think he's getting 2C potential, but I think he could be like replacement potential for, if Middlestat gets hurt and is out a couple games or something like that, you can bring him up there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Like minds.
And then Zach says solid B. I think he did a good job, scored some clutch goals. I think with more ice time, he will show off more of his skill. So,
yeah,
I think most people are in the B high C range for Mr. Colton, and I think as the years go on under this contract, I think he's just going to improve more and more and more. So that's where we're at with Ross Colton. And one last thing we wanted to talk to about with the NHL is just in general. This is nothing to do specifically with the Avalanche. The popularity is it growing, or are other sports catching them? So we're going to wrap up our episode and just discuss that quickly after this. All right. So it's always fun to talk about the NHL and how popular it is, because it just seems like it's always just, grasping at sand on the beach and to just gain more and more eyes. And it's like, most sports, the ratings go up when it comes playoff time. And if you have a good Stanley Cup matchup, your ratings are going to go up a little bit more. But it's keeping those people that is always a problem. Not so much for your number one sport like football or even basketball, but for kind of like those mid-range sports, you get a bump, and it's tough to keep those people when a new season comes around after your championship is over. You said you saw something floating around online where some other sports seem to be closing the gap on the NHL, which a lot of people are saying it's not even like the big four anymore between football, baseball, basketball, and hockey, and that soccer has caught the NHL. And some people by ratings, I think some people are saying it's even overtaken it. So it maybe is now the big five if you're including soccer. But what were you looking at?
I saw a tweet which gained some traction and some interesting conversation over the Memorial Day weekend. And honestly, I can't say that is wrong. Where in 10 years, the WNBA and the MLS will surpass popularity of the NHL. To which all the hockey fans cross their arms and say, and they snort and they chort and they say, no, never. But the MLS did go out and acquire Lionel Messi, and he is now part of the MLS. It's the biggest name in the world of football, soccer, and that has eyes. There's a lot of casual people that are going out there to watch and be a part of the environment and the fun of the raucous crowd and the celebrity that is MLS now. It's got swagger. That's cool. And then when you watch the WNBA and the Caitlin Clark phenomenon compared
Right.
to Connor Bedard, that it you feel like the Caitlin Clark, like that situation and what she's doing for the WNBA is phenomenal. And Connor Bedard that story got tired after 3 weeks, and you never want to hear that name again.
Well, I think with Bedard, it's it was big for people already into hockey. It didn't really break down any walls of casual sports fans being like, I mean, and I don't want to make a blanket statement and just say it's across the board. I'm sure some had interest, be like, wow, there's this really young 18-year-old kid who's people are calling him the second coming of Gretzky. Maybe I'll tune in, but it's tough to keep those people for and then he gets hurt, so that doesn't help either. But I mean, overall, he played a fine rookie season. Was it enough to bring in and hold new people? New people? No, I don't think so. But I think your regular hockey fan, yeah, they're tuning in. I don't know, like as far as soccer goes, yeah. I mean, I guess soccer has caught the NHL, and yeah, you're right with the whole Messi thing. That's probably why. But do people hang around when he hangs them up, whenever that is? I don't know how long he plans on playing for or what the contract is he signed for. Once that's done, are people going to tune out? Like I don't know, because there's other sports out there, like you hear like F1 at racing, like everybody's talking about F1, but like I don't feel like that's really cracking as much as it should in the United States. Yeah, it's got a diehard following. I'm trying to say it doesn't. But is it overcoming all of these other sports? No, I think that's a very like niche thing where that doesn't have just wandering eyes being like, oh, let me go check that out. Just because I think people associate it too much with just NASCAR. If it's a car that's racing, then it's NASCAR, it's IndyCar, whatever. And some people just aren't into that. That's fine. That's fine. But when it comes to the two that you mentioned, I don't think the WNBA, although Caitlin Clark has been phenomenal for that league. And not only her, like they had a really good draft. Who's that? Reese girl, is it Angel Reese? She's another one. And then there was another one I heard all about. Like they got a moment right now. WNBA, can they sustain it? Is the question. We don't know that answer. We'll see. I don't think the WNBA is coming close to the NHL, though. I and I'm not saying that like I don't think that they can catch them. I just think the numbers are what they are, and I don't think the WNBA, even despite the bump that they're getting, is getting close to the NHL. If I'm wrong on that, somebody please comment. But I don't. I looked up quick searches, and I don't think they're coming close to them, at least right now.
Yeah, right now that's the key. But and real quick, the things that you mentioned, F1. If you're wanting, this is the key metric here, which is why the 10-year thing is interesting. F1, if you want to watch F1 right now, Max Verstappen won. And guess what? He's going to win next week and then the week after.
Boring.
So you watch and then you bounce off. When it comes to MLS, you hear Messi joined Inter Miami and you get eyes and you're like, oh, this is cool. And you catch on to the environments. And you're like, oh, that team's cool. And you catch on there. And then you get these new people coming in from internationally. You're not just catering to Americans. It's you're carrying Messi fans from all over the globe to your league, and then you're seeing, oh, I remember him in the World Cup. I remember him, and you're growing new fans that way, and they stay and retain. The WNBA, they're not only getting this incredible draft class, but they're already expanding. And they're expanding the markets that want them. And when we talk about the NHL, Quebec has been screaming for a team for 100,000 years, and everybody else gets a team but Quebec. And
I just don't think it makes sense in Quebec right now. But go ahead. But anyway, go ahead.
And when it comes to the NHL, what has the NHL done other than a big city greens game or a multiverses game that attracts a single casual sports fan? I'm not even talking hockey. I'm just saying general cheers, bar, beer, looking up at television. What makes me want to watch anything that's going on in hockey that I haven't seen for the past 10 years?
I think they struggle with scheduling, but I think the outdoor games are still a draw. I think some people are thinking like they're doing too many of them. I don't feel like they are, but I think they could do a better job of promoting them, because now it's just like, hey, we know it's going to be every January 1st or whenever, right around the new year, and it's just expected that people know that. Maybe they don't. Like, go out. You got to go out and promote it more. But there were for all those sports that you were mentioning, like it comes down to like moments, and with the WNBA having that moment of Caitlin Clark, it's not just a moment of her being drafted. It's like the interest she has now. She's a pro. Let me go watch But isn't her team terrible right now? But I don't know if people care about that. I think people just want to see her play. Hey, score 40 points in a loss. I don't care. And for the NHL, I'm not over this cold yet, dude. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's almost like, you can bring in people because it's the playoffs. You can bring in people because it's the Stanley Cup final. And it's almost like horse racing, right? Like everybody wants to go watch the Kentucky Derby, but that doesn't mean I'm just going to start watching horse racing every day and think I'm going to be an expert in horse racing. The Kentucky Derby is fun for 3 minutes. I turn it on right before it starts. I turn it on right after it's over. I think that's what people do with hockey. I don't think it's really going to grow more than what it is right now. It'll grow incrementally, but when you have a big moment is the Olympics, and unfortunately, you have to wait 2 more years for that to happen. But you get a good bump after the Olympics because people are really like, that is the Olympic sport for winter sports, obviously, and everybody tunes into that. And because it happens in the middle of the season, there is a little bit of a rollover for the rest of that year. But then when you get to the off season, and that's when people like forget about it. And by the time the next year comes around, you're right back to where you were.
Yeah, I think the NHL is just lacking in moments and reasons for anybody to care other than those that have a house full of whatever your color jersey is and whatever team you belong to. To those that don't know anything that's going on with hockey, and especially with the way officiating's been this year, if you turn in and you watch a video review and it's still backwards to what you think and you don't even really know the rules, why am I sticking around? Like it's barely catering to hockey fans as it is right now. It's not doing much when it comes to attracting new fans.
Well, remember I just said, like with Caitlin Clark, like fans of hers will tune in just to see if she can score 40 points. They don't care if she wins or loses. The NHL has a problem with that, with their stars. People tuning in to see Nathan McKinnon or Cale Makar or Connor McDavid just do something ungodly and score 6 points in a game and lose. Like, that doesn't happen in the NHL. So like the NHL struggled forever to promote their stars. They really have. And other leagues do it brilliantly. And people would tune in just to see that specific person play. They don't care about the score. Hockey's built different. Hockey's built different because every point matters in the standings. I'm not saying it doesn't in other sports, but people aren't tuning in to see one particular guy just go off on a game like someone in basketball can do. It's just a sport that's built differently. So, and I think because of that, it's tough to bring in a new fan and keep them for an off season during free agency, and then going into a new season. That's a grind. That is a grind. So I think where the NHL is where the NHL is staying. I don't really feel like you're going to get like this all of a sudden massive increase of viewership. And I think they're okay with that. Well, I shouldn't say they're okay with that. They're not okay with that because they always want to increase. But I don't know. I think it is what it is for the NHL right now, and I don't really see it changing all that much over the next handful of seasons. I don't know if you feel differently. You probably don't.
That doesn't make me feel any better about it.
No. But having said that, I like where the NHL is. And it's not like the forgotten sport. I like how the game is played. If the game was a nightmare to watch, it'd be like, we got problems. But it's fun to watch. It's in my opinion the best sport to watch.
And so is NASCAR, and they have been content with their level that they have been for years. And if you want the NHL to sit at a NASCAR type level, then congratulations, we are here.
All right, that is going to wrap it up for today's episode. So, anything anybody has any comments on, feel free to fire away in the comment section and join our subtext because we will respond to you on there. Absolutely. So, thank you everyone for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day. That is always appreciated. We'll be back tomorrow with a brand new episode. Anything else going on in Avalanche world, we will be discussing it. For Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan, I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.